Wow is the word, folks, after that one. Welcome aboard here to the Open Mic program here on this Friday night, May the 5th, 2017. We are glad to have you aboard here today as we are going to talk about some baseball here today. And what a way to start our day here as we'll talk baseball for the next hour here in the Open Mic program, heard live right here on Blog Talk Radio and also on the Sports Talk Nation on YouTube. You'll be up on YouTube once this show is complete. But oh my, did we see a heck of a ball game today between the New York Yankees and the Chicago Cubs. Let me tell you something, folks. If that is going to be the indication of what we're going to see for the rest of this series, and they have 2 more games left in that series this weekend, and if these 2 teams, the Yankees and the Cubs, are so fortunate to get to a possible World Series, I might jump in the gun here a little bit, maybe, especially here on May the 5th. But if these 2 teams were to meet again at some point beyond this series, sign me up. That was classic baseball we saw there today, folks. I know if you're a Cubs fan, you're a little crestfallen right now. Cubs had a 2-0 lead. They were 1 strike away from winning this baseball game, in spite of the fact they only had 4 hits offensively, in spite of the fact that they did leave a runner at third base and a great opportunity in the 5th inning to tack on a run, in spite of the fact that it was not a game where the offense really did much of anything, but a game where the pitching dominated, and it turned out a game where it looked like the Cubs were going to get away with a 2-0 win against the Yankees. It all turned around on just 1 pitch to Brett Gardner, and that's how these games can go, especially close games like this, where you have 2 good teams going up against one another, and sometimes that has a tendency to happen. And what we saw today by Brett Gardner of the Yankees is not just emblematic of what they've been doing this year for the Yankees, because they have pulled games out of the fire numerous times this year. This was apparently their 9th comeback win this year alone. This team is now 18-9 on the year as they lead the American League East, which nobody thought, let's be fair, nobody thought this Yankee team was going to have a significant lead at any point this year in this division, in the American League. For them to get off to the start is certainly surprising from that standpoint, but to sit here and say that I'm totally surprised that they're being successful, no, because there were seeds planted in spring training and the end of the year last year that gave you a hint that this could be a team on the rise, and it's like a cake baking inside of an oven. The cake is rising quick, if you know what I mean. It's been that much fun to watch from the Yankee point of view, and I'm not even a Yankee fan, but they have been fun to watch. But there are so many things to pick apart from this game between these 2 teams. I could start off with the defense, and the defense in this game, in my mind, was phenomenal, especially from the Cubs early on. Yeah, that great play by Jason Hayward, where he goes diving in the outfield, robs an extra base hit from Sterling Castro in a situation where the Yankees had a runner, 2 runners on base, including Aaron Hicks, who was at second base at the time. Had that ball been called a base hit, Hicks would have easily scored and would have easily given the Yankees the lead. But a great job by Hayward to make that play in right field and rob Castro of a base hit in the RBI. Great defense there. And then there was a couple other very nifty defensive plays. There was a play there in the 4th inning where, I think it was the 5th inning, where Hicks hit a slow grounder to first base. Great play, again, made by Rizzo over there first to make the play, get over there and get the out before the very fast Hicks got to first base. So the Cubs were making some really nice plays defensively in this game to get this team through, even though they weren't hitting the baseball, as I said, well at all. Only 4 hits on the day. They got the home runs that they needed. The big Chris Bryant home run there in the bottom of the 1st inning really set the tone early on. And then in a key situation, with Chicago clinging to that 1-0 lead, they get a big-time home run from Kyle Schwarber to make it 2-0. Now, I will preface this, because earlier, before that home run ever took place, in that 6th inning, there was a huge point in this ball game in that 6th inning, top of the 6th, where the Yankees had a chance to tie the game at 1. Sterling Castro got tagged out at home on a play on a hard liner to third, initially over by Headley, where he lined out land out hard to right, and a great throw from right field all the way home, and an even better tag by Wilson Contreras down the third baseline as he collides with Castro for the out. Contreras got shaken up on the play as well after that hit, but he was okay. He's a tough guy. He watches hockey. He stayed in the rest of the game, but that was a huge play right there in that top of the sixth inning, where the Yankees cost themselves a huge run at that spot. And then then bottom of that sixth inning, Schwarber hits the home run, makes it 2-0. So you kind of had this sense early on that the Cubs were going to have one of those days. That this was, I don't want to say changing the guard, because again, this is a Yankee team that came into this year very, very young. Expectations were modest, to say the least, for them. But think about the history of these two teams. Here is a Yankee team that for decades and decades has been the king of Major League Baseball. They have been the team that would cash in on such opportunities. They would be the team that would get those big home runs in big spots early in games and would grind you out. They would be the team with all the all-stars. They were the team that had everything going for them. And the Cubs were kind of that nice little story. Well, that role has now reversed itself in a lot of ways. Coming into this series, here are the big bad Cubs going up against a upstart Yankee team, and Chicago looks like it's on its way to a 2-0 win. Now, there were a couple of moments in this game that I thought really undid Chicago, well before the home run ever took place. There was a moment in the bottom of the fifth, and if you watch this game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Bottom of the fifth, where Wilson Contreras is safe on third base after an error by Aaron Judge in right field, where he bobbles the ball gets away from him, Contreras gets all the way to third. All this with one out. And it creates an opportunity for the Cubs where they can get another run on the board. They already lead at 1-0. All they need to do is get that ball out of the infield, and Contreras can score, even on a sac fly. And it's 2-0 Chicago. And there's a good chance if that run scores, we're not talking about the Yankees winning this game 3-2. Instead, Kyle Hendricks grounds out to second base. John Jay grounds out the shortstop. A great job by Michael Pineda in a tough spot. And here's a guy in Pineda who in New York had gotten killed last year and came into this year with a lot of questions about his toughness, about his durability in these games, in not just in games but in the season, because he has had so many injuries throughout his career. But he gets a big out, two big outs there in the fifth inning. I thought that really, really was kind of the start of some worrisome moments for the Cubs. To me, the biggest turning point of this game, before we bring in our guest, Robert Villarreal, the biggest turning point in this game for me happened in the top of the eighth when Aaron Judge struck out. And I know what you're going to say, well, he struck out. But what happened there after that strikeout is when Pedro Strop jumped up and down on the mound as if he had won the pennant by getting the strikeout. You can't do that. And this is a Cubs team that has a lot of veteran guys that have now been there and done that after what happened last year. You really can't show up your opponent like that. And I think that kind of got the Yankee dugout going a little bit going into that ninth inning. So right now, let me welcome in my guest, and that is Robert Villarreal, who writes for Baseball Essential, as he covers the Chicago Cubs. Rob, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. Mike, how are you?
Doing great. Glad to have you back on. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at this game at all, but just quickly, your thoughts after this Yankees and Cubs game. How did you, just your thoughts on maybe where the turning point was?
Honestly, I really didn't get to see it. I was at work, and I really just walked in the door, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So I've only been able to see just little highlights or whatever's popping up on the ticker on my phone throughout the day. Mm. So I can't say really firsthand what it might have been, but I was just listening to what you were saying, and I do have to reiterate a point that it doesn't matter how old you are. This goes to a lot. The people that are very pro or anti bat flip, things like that. Mm. It's about respect and showing that you've been there before. It's just like in football, like ball or you do a dance, or you just hand the football to the ref and go in for the next play. It's it's just a matter of professionalism, and you're right. And at the same time, it's still sports. I mean, we've all played something where we got a little carried away. I've hit a 3-pointer here or there, and where I got way more excited than I probably should have been, and I kind of felt like a jerk. But when it comes down to it, you're absolutely right when you say that you're a champion. You're a proven champion. Everyone knows you're a champion. Doesn't matter your age or what you're doing. You should still compose yourself and conduct yourself properly, especially on a national stage like that. Because when you're absolutely right. You're just gonna, hey, you know what? We need to take care of these guys. We need to come back and win this. And that can absolutely happen. And unfortunately, that I can't say, like I said, firsthand. I didn't see it, but if there was a turning point, that's probably it. Because from what I saw in the stats, it was a close game, but everything kind of seemed to be clicking along just fine until the end. And here we are.
Oh no, they were clicking along fine. And like I said, they didn't get a lot of hits. They only had 4 hits on the day, but for the most part, the Yankees weren't doing much offensively. They had a bad base running mistake by Castro that really cost them a run there in the 5th inning. And looked like Chicago was going to come away with a nice 2-0 win. But once I saw Strop jumping up and down on the hill, I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be some kind of retaliation. I'm thinking maybe a ball's going to go by somebody's head, something like that in that form. I never ever thought it was going to be a 3-run home run. But with the at bat that Gardner had to work it to 2-2 was a good at bat. He took a couple of pitches in, made it 2-0. There was one pitch that was slightly high, but it may have caught a part of the black. It was called a strike. Gardner didn't like it. Then he fouled the pitch off, got it 2-2, and then the pitch happened, kind of low and away, and he just golfed it into right field, into the new bleachers there in right field. And to see, here in New York, from what we see from Brett Gardner, is that he's always a very reserved guy. Doesn't show a lot of emotion. But when I saw him jumping up in the air and high-fiving guys at home plate the way he did, I'm sure you've seen the highlight of that already, but it was kind of like a message across the bow to Pedro Strop saying, hey, this is the reason to celebrate here when we do something like that. Take that kind of deal. And then, of course, Chapman comes out there, then bottom of the 9th, and shuts the door, kind of ironically, the former closer of the Cubs. So it was a crazy game. It was a game that just felt like, even though it's May 5th, Rob, it just felt like the kind of game you would see in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? It was just that kind of back and forth kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, and you're going to have a lot of that because the Cubs are, as we talked about in the preseason, they're the team to beat. They're the champs, they're the reigning champs, and they will be until the next team wins, whether it's them or New York or Boston or anyone else. So they're definitely that giant that everyone's aiming for. And that's who they want to take down. That's the competition. Are there more good teams? Yeah. You've got other teams, playing well, whether, like I said, Boston or LA or anyone else. When you've got, some good teams, you obviously want to beat them, but they're the king of the hill right now, and to be able to knock them down and show them up, and like you said, someone gives you a little extra fuel like that, it helps, I remember back in the day, I played a lot of football in high school, and if an opposing coach that week had ever said anything about our team and whatnot, it'd be like, oh, they're not that good, whatever it might have been. Our coach would, print, make copies of, the paper, the headline, or the story, whatever, and, it'd be taped up on all of our lockers. It's like, this is your fuel. You want to beat them? Now you got a real reason. It's not just a win, it's pride. And there's, just like any other team, there are 25 professionals on that Yankee roster, and they want to win too. They're full of pride, and at the end of the day, they want it. They're proven to be quite a surprise. They don't even, they're the 17 wins, 18 wins today?
Yeah, they're 18-9. Yeah, they've been really surprising this year. I thought they would be improved. A lot of people thought they would be under 500. I thought they'd be around a 500 team, maybe 83, 84 win team. I didn't think that they would get off to this kind of start, but I mean, they're on pace to do things that I don't think they're on pace to win well over 90 games. Aaron Judge is on his pace to hit 70 home runs, which is kind of strange to think about it nowadays without the steroid era. But it's been a crazy season for them, and apparently they have now 9 come from behind wins, which is even more insane in and of itself.
Yeah, the pace thing always made me laugh. Like throughout I forget when they started doing that. I want to say like maybe early '90s, mid '90s. They kind of started talking about that. And I remember one season somewhere '96ish, maybe '90. It might have been the Sosa McGuire, home run race year. And I remember right in the beginning of this season, I think Sosa had like 2 home runs in 3 games or 3 home runs in 4 games or something like that to start the season. And I remember a stat up, I think I was watching Fox, and it was like a Saturday game, and I remember stat up like, Sammy's hit like 3 home runs and like 11 at-bats. He's on pace for something like 267 home runs. I'm like, you're getting a little ahead of yourself there. I mean, yeah, it's a great pace, but no one's, he's on pace for 5,000 hits. Not this year, but you're absolutely right. I mean, Judge is just clobbering stuff, and it's, a very pleasant surprise. I mean, he's, I don't know what the day average, but I know he's definitely hitting over 300. His OPS has to be up there too. I mean, he's just slugging like it's going out of style, and I'm very impressed. I mean, I knew he had talent. I didn't know that much about him. I know about a lot of guys, but I more stay in tune with the Cubs and who they're playing, like in the division. So I don't see a lot of Boston. I don't see a lot of Yankees. I don't see a lot of Mariners, things like that. So when I get to see some players like this, it's really fantastic. Or even, former Cubs Starlin Castro on the team. And he's doing really well, too. He's hitting over 300 for the year, which is a pleasant surprise for him. He hasn't. He's been pretty slumpy the past year or so, and I've always said, I'll still say, defensively, I'll take Addison Russell over Starlin Castro. It's fine that they moved him, but it's good to see him, doing well, or any other former player like Warren, who also, got a ring today. Things like that. And also Chapman also got his World Series ring today, which they very much earned. So
yes,
Chapman might have got the save and things like that, but it just goes back to what we were saying initially. It's just a matter of professionalism. You play your heart up, and at the end of the day, we're all just working here, doing the same job, and let's respect each other.
That dude is going home with a big fat piece of bling. How does he get that thing onto the airplane? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I don't know if they gotta ship it. I don't know if he gets his own security guard until he gets home.
I have no idea.
I wouldn't want to take it out of him. I wouldn't check it. I tell you that much.
I know. Sir, you got to take that out of the bag. Sir, you got to take that out of the bag. We got to see that. You got to put that through the machine.
Yeah.
But it's a World Series ring. Yeah, sir, it could be explosive. We don't know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, dogs all barking and stuff.
And then you find out that the security guy's a Cardinals fan, which makes it worse. But
oh yeah, we're gonna have to detain you, sir.
Oh man. So anyway, another nice thing about one thing that's been kind of fun here the last couple of weeks for the Cubs, they've been able to play some of these interleague opponents, Boston, the Yankees, so they get that taste of playing some of these teams out there in the American League East. And I think for the most part they played some good games. I know that they would have liked to have won some of these games. Obviously today is a case in point, but I think that while it's been kind of start and stop at times this year, I think they've been playing well. It's just that a lot of teams, when you go up against other teams, we talked about this in preseason, Rob, when you're playing teams that have a bullseye on you, you're going to play a lot of close games. You're going to lose some games early in the season. It's just about just kind of riding the wave, I should say, riding the wave, and finding your way to the top when you really need to play your best baseball later on in the year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and you can say that about a lot a lot of sports, whether it's, hockey or basketball, but, no one plays as many games as the MLB. I've been saying for years, I think they should probably shorten it a good couple games too. I never believe that 162 is absolutely necessary, but when it comes down to it, it's just a matter of, making sure that you go to an opponent as many as they come to you. And, in the end, a lot of baseball is like 3-game series, but at the end you want to have an even amount, like 11-11 or whatever it might be. So, I can understand that, but you're right. It's a trudge. It's about, taking it one day at a time and doing your at-bats and, not really, working out too hard and getting too tired because you got a doubleheader tomorrow. And, Joe Maddon has been really great about that. And we talked about that in the preseason too, about, making sure that guys don't overdo it, that they relax. Hey, we're not going to do BP today. You're going to take off. You can't come in early. No one's, because most games, what a lot of people don't realize is okay, they show up, they play a sport, it's a 3-hour game. But they come in for meetings and training or rehab, things like that. They're there 3, 4, 5 hours before the game, and they're a couple hours afterwards too. They're getting paid a couple mil, but it's a 12 to 14-hour day sometimes, different on the length of the game as well. So, that can really wear on you. And then when, the manager would say, hey, come in early, everyone shows up an hour before, and that's it. Like even, was it yesterday? Yesterday, the day before, they didn't even have to do BP. The opponent did BP, and I think it was Cincinnati. I forget. Anyways, but the Cubs didn't come out for BP. They played a little catch in the outfield, and that was it.
It's a grind. Every single day you're out there. Every single day. I remember having a chat with a couple of players down in the minor leagues when I was down there, and they said, we don't even know what day of the week it is. They're not even kidding when they say that because you're playing literally every single day. You have no idea really what the calendar is. You just go by wherever the schedule tells you to go, whether they tell you you're going to play in New York today, you're going to play in Kansas City tomorrow, you're going to play at home here or there. You just follow what the schedule says, and that's it. And I think that also plays into a lot of decision-making, obviously, with the bullpen. And this bullpen, we talked about them in preseason, is a very solid bullpen. But I think a lot of people are probably going to get on Joe Maddon today for not going to Wade Davis. But, Wade Davis has pitched the last 3 days. He's no spring chicken. He's, 31 going on 32. He wanted to give Rondon a shot. It didn't work out the way they would have liked. All he needed was just one more strike. But that's the kind of second guessing that comes from a lot of fans. But when you have these spoiled riches that they do with Davis and Edwards and Montgomery and Urahara, you really could mix and match. We talked about that before as often as you want if you're Joe Maddon.
Yeah, it always goes back to the old adage of, hindsight is 20/20. It's I don't know what you might call it in baseball, but in football it's just Monday morning quarterbacking. Should have did this, and it's easy to second guess when something goes wrong. But if it would have worked, they would have he is a genius, and it just really differs on the circumstance. In the beginning of the year, I'd say that like it was a long time ago, but in the beginning of the season, the starting pitchers were doing pretty well, but the Cubs relievers were, kind of getting shelled, at least hit-wise, if not run-wise. And in the past couple weeks, maybe the past 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, it's kind of turned around where now you've got, guys like, Lackey or even Hendricks kind of getting hit up a little bit, but you've got other gents like, Montgomery coming in. I was always a big proponent of Montgomery as well, that he should have got the 5th spot, and I think that, like I said, Anderson's his ERA has got to be above 5. I don't know what it is. It's got to be above 5.5 at least. But I'm looking it up. 6.23. Yeah. So I think they should sit, Anderson and put Montgomery in. But that's the thing is that, Montgomery's been doing really well. Carl Edwards Jr. just killing it. He's only given up one run in like 13 games, like 13 innings pitched. A lot of these guys are doing really, really well in the bullpen, and I'm really glad because that's always the weakest part. You're in the bullpen because you're not good enough to start and you're not good enough to close. So you're in the middle, and that can be really hard and really trying. But also things mentally and such. But I'm really happy and kind of elated that they're taking off, and especially Davis, because he was hurt last year, and now he's doing so well. He's 7 for 7, in save opportunities, and he's got, I think, at least like a 5-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. So he's just dealing it, and I love it. And I wasn't really sure. I was an optimist about that, I'll admit it, because of his injury last year, but I'm really glad that things are working out this way. And yeah, it's too bad about Rondon today, but everyone's going to have their day. Jake Arrieta won the Cy Young, a couple of years ago, and you know what? He still gets shelled for a couple home runs here or there. It happens. Everyone's human, but at the end of the day, I'm really happy that the relievers are doing as well as they are, and as long as they keep doing what they're doing, and again, you do it for the length, you do it for the long run, and hopefully the starters get re-solidified, then, yeah, I think it could be a very, very good time for the Cubs here, because no one else is doing it quite well in the NL Central either. So.
Yeah, I mean, the NL Central is kind of a quagmire right now. I mean, Cincinnati got off to that hot start. They were in first place, and now they're kind of treading back to where I think a lot of people thought they would be. St. Louis just hasn't gotten started. I mean, they've just been a deadlocked under 500 forever. Pittsburgh is the same thing, and Milwaukee right now is the closest competition. So, if, from the Cubs standpoint, that's not bad. You'll take that if Milwaukee ends up being the closest competition for a while here as they try to figure things out.
Yeah, Milwaukee's kind of turning out. I've been really surprised, and I hate to say it as a Cubs fan, but my pick for the World Series initially in the preseason was Cardinals-Red Sox. So, I'd love to see the Cubs go back. Don't get me wrong, but I thought the Cardinals would definitely take off a lot faster than they have. Well, I shouldn't say that because they really haven't taken off yet.
Are you saying that you put the jinx on the Cardinals?
That could have been, yes. I picked the Cardinals, and that's what happened. See, that's a problem, is because you pick the Cubs every year, and it just never really happened. You're just mired in mediocrity, and you just kind of accept that. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's happening with them, but, I mean, it's like we said, it's a long season. There's still, 130 games left to play, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of games left. I mean, it's a long season, and one thing I just want to ask you about this team, going back on the pitching. What are your thoughts right now on the starting pitching? Because we know it's a really deep rotation. We know there are a lot of guys again that have been there, done that, from Arrieta and Lester, Hendricks, Lackey. But last couple of weeks, the stats the ERAs have gone up a little bit here. All these guys have gotten hit a little bit. I mean, it is early in the season. I understand that. A lot of these guys are still trying to get into their groove. A lot of these guys, even coming out of spring training, aren't going to be as fully extended as they will be come June, July, August. So what are your thoughts right now, early in the season, with this rotation so far that's been, I guess you could say, at the very least, up and down so far?
It really has. And I'd say this, loving the Cubs, that, sometimes changes need to be made. I mean, you're not going to, pull some of the guys. You're always going to have Arrieta in there. You're going to have Lester in there, and maybe even Lackey, just out of age and respect. I don't know, but I mean, I could. It's just hard sometimes when you got guys in the rotation like Lackey or Anderson. They're not really going to be much good out of the bullpen. Their starters have been starters for so long, and it's really been kind of lackluster, the effort and the outings. But at the same time, I also wonder if we were just so used to excellence last year. Everyone did so well. You talk about your number 5 guy last year in Hendricks, and how, that he was being talked about up until the last day for Cy Young, which is no one talks about a number 5 being a Cy Young, but he was phenomenal. And, now as I look at his stats, I mean, he's got like a 3.51 ERA. It never went that high last year, I mean, he's getting hit a little bit, 231 batting average, couple runs, 13, probably at least. I mean, the least out of all the starters, but it's still not great. I mean, Lester's throwing a 367, Arrieta 463. I mean, that's just gigantor for Arrieta. I mean, his ERA is usually just paper thin. I mean, Lackey, I can understand it, and Anderson, I was skeptical to begin with, but I don't know if Anderson's really working out. Like I said a couple minutes ago, I'd love to see Montgomery get a shot in the rotation. I know there aren't a whole lot of Grimm fans. Unfortunately, Grimm's been getting lit up too this season with a 7.3 ERA. Wow.
Yeah.
But I've also seen him pitch, because he was a starter when he came into the league. He was starting for Texas. And he did pretty well. So I'd love to see him get a shot, or even, bringing up someone like a Pierce Johnson, maybe to give them a shot, just to maybe work out the kinks, give someone an extra day off. I'd like to see him get a shot. I'd like to see Montgomery get a shot. Probably, pull down Anderson. Well, not send him down. I mean, move him into the bullpen, something of that nature. But it's just a grind. They're just kinks you'll work out, and at the same time, like I said, it's when you come off such a spectacular season where everyone was just lights out. The hitting was perfect. The fielding was perfect. The pitching just always seemed to be timely. It's not like they didn't give up runs. It's not like they didn't give up, hits. And it's not like they never lost a game. But, when they did so well for so long and they kind of just kept pulling rabbits out of their hats the whole year, they're down 4-8 in the ninth and they still win by 2 runs or something of that nature. I don't know. It's just a grind. It's hard to say what'll happen. I just know that it's, as compared to what it was last year, it's hard to look at and it's difficult to adjust to, because this is, kind of what average sort of everyday pitching is, unfortunately. You go around the league, you look at a lot of guys, you're not going to have a lot of guys in the 3 ERA. You're going to, the Cy Young guys are usually low to high 2s, even low 3s sometimes. And then you've got, plenty of guys are 4, 5, and unfortunately even 6, different on how much they pitch. But
yeah, I mean, it's a great point you make. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you make a great point. I mean, look at the team they're playing this weekend here with the Yankees. They come into a year where a lot of people don't like their rotation coming in, a lot of questions, and the rotation's been good so far. Now I look at this Cub rotation. I like this rotation. I still do. Anderson's could be in for a tough one. It'll be a big game from tomorrow against the Yankees tomorrow night. But, I think law of averages always has a tendency just to kind of even out. And a lot of these rough starts for a lot of guys like Lackey, for Arrieta, for Lester, eventually those guys are going to start pitching the way you would expect them to. And eventually those guys are going to get those ERAs down to where I think a lot of fans would like to see them. I mean, they are still striking guys out. They're not walking guys, so they're not putting themselves in the lost positions where they're putting a lot of guys on base. But it's just been that 1 or 2 bad innings that have hurt them so far. And another team that kind of reminds me of this, Rob, a little bit like the Mets right now, because look at their situation with all the pitchers they have getting injured. Syndergaard on the DL and Matt's on the DL. Matt Harvey's been just god awful. I mean, pitching's a premium. Doesn't matter who you are. I can't
I can't feel worse. Like I mean, I'm not a Mets fan, but as a baseball fan and as a guy who tries to, as a writer, as a connoisseur of the game, I guess, I try and look at everything very omnisciently, kind of from the outside looking at it. I try not to look at everyone like, okay, I'm a Cubs fan, so I look at this one harshly. I kind of look at everyone just as a baseball fan, and my heart sunk, for Syndergaard, and because that's just, terrible. That's just, you hate to say it this early in the season, but like you said, pitching's a premium. Something happens to a guy like that. I mean, that's almost a nail in the coffin for your season. And when you can't get, other guys going like Matt Harvey, who's been lights out for years, you can't really anticipate what's going to go on. But you're absolutely right, 110%. I mean, pitching is a premium. It's hard to come by because you can waver, you can have a bad day, you can have a bad game, and that's kind of the end of it for you. I mean, a lot of these guys, and it's hard because they've only pitched 5-6 games. Some of them, they've only had a couple of starts, and they'll have high 20s, low 30s by the end of the season. So they'll have a larger sample size to look at. And at the end of the season, you'll see, a lot of things even out. But, yeah, it's hard to look at when, what is your pride? And and you can talk all about, last season, Chris Bryant getting the MVP, and all the hitting and the run differential, which I actually I looked up today because something popped up on my Facebook. I posted something about the run differential in this day last year and how the Cubs were on pace for again, here's the on pace thing. They're on pace for something like 534 a positive run differential on the season.
Mm-hmm.
And the highest all time was 400, 370 or something. They only ended up 300 or 270 over on the positive side, but they're still better than the second place team, which was Boston last year, 160 or 170. But the thing is that you're right. Law of averages, just like you said, everything will even out, and things will eventually work. And like I said, as far as what the pride of the Cubs was last year was really the pitching. Everyone's talking about Chris Bryant winning the MVP. How well Rizzo was hitting, or Fowler. When he played center, he got hurt a little bit, but when he was in, he was just a catalyst for that offense. But when it comes down to it, it was the pitching. The pitching was key. If they didn't have the pitching, it really almost I shouldn't say it. Not that it shouldn't matter how many runs you get, but if you can't keep your guys down, you can't keep your opponents low, then it really doesn't matter if you put up 10 runs when you're giving up 12.
Yeah. We can even now flip it to the other side here on the other side of the diamond here with the hitting, and same thing really applies because this Cubs team has for the most part struggled offensively. Now I know Chris Bryant's had a very good year so far. That's really no surprise at all. Jason Hayward's done a nice job when he's gotten his playing time, even though he's hitting only 253. But you like to see some of these others start to hit a little more, like an Anthony Rizzo who's hitting at 235. The power of the RBIs are there, but I think we all expect as baseball fans Rizzo to be up there a little bit more in the batting average. Same thing with Russell, who's hitting at 241, and I think Kyle Schwarber just trying to adjust to first full season back. Now in the leadoff spot, that's another adjustment right there. Right now at 193. What are your thoughts right now? You see them a lot more than I do, obviously. Where this hitting is right now.
I think it'll come along, and it's like we said, law of averages, long season. You'll always have ups and downs. It's really great that a lot of different guys get in there and contribute. You look at Mickey Montero. He's had some timely home runs. John Jay, I had no idea what was going to happen with Jay. I wasn't sure because I'm a big Almora fan out in center, and I'd like to see Almora play every day. But Jay's been out there, and he's been doing really great.
Yeah.
And he's been hitting really well. He's got a good couple extra base hits, and you're gonna. And Brian's doing well, but everyone's gonna struggle. And even last year, I'm thinking it was either last year or the year before. Rizzo was just terrible. He had a stint anyways. We're talking 6-7 weeks where he wasn't hitting 200. He couldn't hit 200 to save his life. But he comes out of it. It happens. You're gonna string together a couple hits, and it's gonna pay off. But it's also who you're facing, the time of the day. There's so many factors that go into hitting. It's nothing really detrimental in the long run. The Schwarber thing, I think that's very interesting to have him in the leadoff spot. I'm not sure if that's going to work in the long run. They may end up even switching that out, but they don't have anyone who's a leadoff hitter.
No.
They don't have that one guy that's like, oh, this is what he does. He just he hits, he's fast, he gets on base, and that's what it's going to be. I understand why he put Schwarber up there because he wants Schwarber and Bryant and Rizzo and Zobrist to have the bulk of the at bats. If anyone's going to get a fourth at bat or a fifth at bat, he wants it to be those 3 or 4 guys. And I completely understand that because they're, they bring the thunder. Not that Russell can't hit a home run or Scherzer or anyone else, but it's just a higher likelihood, traditionally that, hey, you can't pitch around these guys. You're going to have to pitch to one of them, and if you make a mistake, we're going to win. And speaking of super surprises, I mean, Jason Hayward has been very pleasant and super fantastic. I've been hearing nothing but Jason Hayward blah for for a good little while now. So I'm happy he's finally hitting and contributing and doing well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Schwarber, the one thing I will say is this: the Cubs really need to find a table setter. I think, whether they insert Albert Almora, and I still think they probably could do this. I know Almora doesn't have any stolen bases right now at this point of the year, but maybe you can insert him at the top of the lineup. Maybe a John Jay. Maybe give him a couple of starts at the start of the lineup, top of the lineup, just to give some legs and some life to this lineup. Because, you and I both know this, that as much as you want to see as a Cubs fan or anything, you want to see your best hitters get as many bats as possible. Addison Russell, Rizzo, Zobrist, Schwarber, and Bryant. It's better when you have those speed guys at the top of the lineup to get that opportunity for an RBI situation and just lengthens your lineup that much more. And if you have a Kyle Schwarber hitting fifth in the lineup or sixth in the lineup, that's scary for an opposing team. I mean, it's like there's no rest at all. But they really have to find that guy. Maybe that guy would become available on the trading block. I don't know who that would be. We're still, 2.5 months away from July and getting towards the trade deadline. But I think if there's one area that the Cubs are going to want to address at some point between now and the 31st of July is going to be that leadoff spot, maybe even an outfield spot for that matter, center field or what have you, to really cement that position of the leadoff hitter.
Yeah, that'd be great. I certainly hope for that. But at the same time, if it works out with Schwarber and he hits a little better, that's awesome too. I mean, he's not even hitting 200 right now, and I mean, he's not just going to stay in it just because of who he is or what he plays or because he's got a big bat. He's one of the leaders in home runs. You're not going to do it just for that reason. Your leadoff guy should probably be speedy, maybe even leg out a bunt, but definitely good contact hitter. Get it on the ground, loop it over second base or something, and just, like you said, set the table for the next guy because you've got a lot of good guys behind you. But I don't think that Joe Maddon's just going to leave him in just for the sake of doing it. He's very he really likes to move around his lineups, even though he hasn't done it too much this year. Try different things, move guys in different positions. Already this year he's done multiple lineups where he's had the pitcher hitting eighth, and putting someone like Javi Baez in ninth, possibly setting the table for the top of the lineup as well. So you can never really tell what Joe Maddon's going to do. He also famously did the Tommy Two-Tone lineup. The Tommy Two-Tone, he did the 8-6-7-5-3-0-9.
Yeah.
Song that,
8-6-7-5-3. Sorry.
Yeah, he did that lineup just for the sake of doing a Tommy Two-Tone lineup. Although it was 5-3-1-9, but yeah, I mean, he did that. I mean, just for the sake of, my lineup is, a Tommy Two-Tone song. So you can never really tell what Maddon's going to do, but at the same time, he's still a professional manager, and they're just still professional ball players, and they'll understand if they got to move down, move up. I mean, I'd like to see Hayward move up a little bit. Like I said, he's been hitting well. I know that Contreras is the full-time catcher, but maybe even giving Montero an extra day or so because he's been kind of hot as late. And like I said, getting Jay in there, absolutely. I'm a big Al Mora fan, but to see some of these guys, let the ones that are doing well keep doing well. Regardless of who it is, even if Matt Caesar comes in and he built 3 home runs over a weekend, shoot, give him another day. Why not?
Yeah.
So it'll come together, and it'll eventually pay off. They'll get someone in the leadoff. So I'm not sure if they're really going to find that leadoff guy this year, at least not on this team. It's entirely possible. I'd love to say it. I'd love to see whether it's John Jay or Mora or whoever it might be. I mean, I don't see it happen, but I think that they're probably just going with a little less traditional, as far as that lineup goes, but that's also what Maddon's famous for, i.e. the Tommy Two-Tone lineup. So, like I said, Season's young. We'll see what happens.
Maybe he has maybe he has the Tiny Two Tone song on his iPhone or something, and just listens to it every so often in the car. He probably like, you know what? I just can't get the song out of my head. I'm going to make my lineup that way. That's probably what he does.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Oh my god! But one thing about this season so far, Rob, that I've noticed is that yes, while it has been kind of touch and go so far for the Cubs early on in the season, we both touched on this just about 10 minutes ago with the way the Central Division's kind of slumping. But really, entire National League isn't that special either. Okay, outside of Washington D.C. with the Nationals who are 19-9, there really isn't any other team out there that really is going to pose a threat to either the Cubs or the Nationals. The Giants have a lot of problems. We talked about pitching problems. My goodness, some Bumgarner getting into a motorcycle accident. That's probably the biggest one of all. You got the Dodgers, who have been bad this year. Padres are not that good. I don't know if you believe in the Rockies and D-backs. So really the entire National League, for that matter, isn't that great going into the first month plus of the season.
Yeah, the Rockies have been sputtering a little bit as well.
Yeah.
I thought the D-backs were going to do a lot better than they are too. I mean, you got Goldschmidt, Big Paul. You've got a lot of guys who can do some really good things. Just the top teams last year, like you said, Giants or Dodgers or anyone else. I mean, everyone seems kind of mediocre, and then you just see teams that you don't expect winning, like the Marlins, and they're trouncing their opponents. So, yeah, it's really hard to say exactly what's going to happen, but it's still a small sample size. We still got many months left. I mean, we're only beginning of May. We still got all of May, June, July. I mean, 4 months of baseball. So, I mean, before the playoffs at least. So there's still a long way to go. It's been very surprising with how it's worked out. But that's a great game. The great aspect of these games is that you can't just go in and say, you know what, the Yankees are going to win every year. You know what, the Patriots are going to win. Yeah, did the Patriots just win the Super Bowl? Yeah. Are they favored next year? Yeah. But you don't know what's going to happen. Tom Brady's going to have a dent, or they're going to lose a couple of linemen. You don't know what's going to happen, and it works that way in all sports, whether with the Blackhawks in hockey or the Cubs in the MLB. It's really hard to repeat in the MLB.
It really is.
It's so. I mean, to even have what's considered a dynasty and have that couple, 2, 3, 4 within a couple of years, like say the Yankees did in the mid '90s, that's so hard to do, especially in the era of free agency and big money. And it's really hard to come by. But at the same time, I mean, right now, it's looking like an AL kind of year. Like I said, with Boston, with New York, and some of these other teams, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
That are all, coming out of the gate hot.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, that entire American League East, at least 1 through 3, New York, Baltimore, Boston, all been good. Houston's been great. Even the Angels have been better than I think anyone expected. The Indians have been kind of like the Cubs, kind of treading water a little bit, but they're 15-10. Speaking of Chicago baseball, people forget about the White Sox. The White Sox are in first place at 15-12. They've been playing good baseball themselves. So while the Cubs, of course, get all the headlines, the White Sox are kind of quietly doing their thing as well, as they're right now in first place. So, I think, again, I'd like to reiterate your talking point right there. It is very early in the season. So we'll see how these things are going to start to play out over the course of the next couple of months. But I really am interested to see how some of these teams that got off to hot starts that a lot of people didn't really think much of at the beginning of the year, whether they'll fade off, like Baltimore, like the Yankees in some respect, like Colorado, Arizona. And if we start to see the teams that you would expect to win start to play better as we start to get towards Memorial Day, that's really what we're going to start to find out, Blue Wings.
Yeah, that's really going to be when they're starting to dig in. And you're absolutely right. I totally, and just like everyone else, I totally forgot about the White Sox.
I know.
They're, to even mention that, they're doing a whole heck of a lot better, and they're still shopping guys. You know what I mean? They're still looking for a trade partner for Quintana, and still trying to, move some of the vets to get some younger guys and just kind of rebuild and retool the farm system. I mean, the farm system after those couple of trades in the preseason, they're ranked number one farm system now. So they've got a bright future as long as they can properly, cultivate these players and, bring them up at the right pace and, really, just kind of do what the Cubs have been doing the past couple of years. That's the key to success. You get a lot of guys in your farm system, and you're going to have free agency and things of that nature and have some vets, but, to be able to bring up these guys and bring up yourself and build them how you want and put them in the positions you want, I mean, that's what the White Sox are doing, and although they have been doing a lot better right now than anyone would expect, I mean, you're still going to see a lot of new faces eventually, but for this year, I can't say anything but good things for teams like the White Sox that no one really anticipated, or like I said, even the Orioles, who, I mean, they're good, but, no one would expect them to beat Boston, No one expected them to beat out Boston at the beginning of the season, but they're number 2 in the division right now.
I gotta say here, before we start to close this thing out, we got the Bears made a lot of headlines, obviously, with Trubisky. That is probably the most bizarre story I've seen in a long time, with John Fox not being aware that they were going to make that pick, with Mike Glennon being at the draft party and then all of a sudden seeing the pick. I mean, it's almost like being at a party and all of a sudden you have the beer in your hand and you drop it and it like breaks into pieces. The glass goes everywhere. I mean, that's such a bizarre situation right now with the Bears. I was actually trying to tune into some of this Chicago radio, trying to find it on YouTube and what have you, just see if there was anything that was posted, and they actually posted a clip of the actual draft happening, and they did a live function with one of the Chicago radio stations, and all the guys just sat there like, what the heck just happened?
There was one, I don't know if you saw it, if it was that one, there was, on the left hand side of the screen, there was actually a kid, I don't know, 14, 16 years old in a Packer jersey just laughing. Just like, you got these Chicago guys with their hands on their head, and you got this Packer kid just laughing his butt off at the pick. No one expected it. I thought the Bears should have went safety or defensive line. A lot of people were saying, safety was, that's too high for a safety pick, but shoot. I always say that if he's a first-round pick, he should be starting.
Yeah.
I know maybe that doesn't always go in, there's always an exception to the rule, especially when you look at, even someone in division like Aaron Rodgers, who sat for a couple of years under Favre. He was a first-round pick. I want to say he was around 18 or 22 or something like that for the Packers. So, there's always an exception to the rule. But, how many times have I seen the Bears? There was there was a draft where the Bears took this gent, his name was Hayes, out of Penn State. He was a defensive end. And they just, they already had a couple DNs, and they just, picked up a guy on free agency for some ungodly amount of money, and they're drafting a DN in the first round. Why?
Yeah. Why?
Yes, that was a different GM back then, but you should absolutely, have people included in that discussion. I mean, is it up to the GM? When it comes down to it, does he have the final word? Yeah, most times, yes. I mean, maybe the owner will say something or things of that nature. I mean, he does have bosses, whether it's a team president or whatnot, but ultimately that is generally understood to be his decision. But I would still include other people in it because it's hard. I always use the analogy of, that the head coach is a chef, but if you don't give him the right ingredients, he can't make anything good. So basically he's the chef, but he's got the GM shopping for him. And
I love that analogy. That's great. And I also go by the analogy that Parcells had many years ago, where he likes to be the guy that shops for the groceries. I've been kind of the guy that always like to have the head coach have some say, if not most of the same player personnel. That to me just looks like a situation where John Fox is about to get kicked to the side of the road. At the end of the year, I think he's going to be glad to be kicked to the side of the road with the way that's kind of handing out there in Chicago. That's just really a strange situation going on over there. And it kind of reminds me of what the Lions did many years ago with Matt Millen as the GM when they drafted receiver after receiver after receiver every year. And it actually was kind of ironic because apparently the Jets were supposed to take Trubisky, and everyone was up in arms like, "Oh, please don't let that happen! Please don't let that happen," because the same situation that's going on in New York is kind of happening in Chicago. They bring in a veteran guy. They're already paying him. They have another young guy in the roster already, and it just didn't make sense. But really, just bizarre. I mean, the whole thing is just absolutely bizarre, and I really feel bad for Glennon because he just got sideswiped by his own general manager.
Yeah, I mean, in their defense, I mean, he's got a 3-year deal, but it's only 1 year with then a club option. So that could be what they were planning to do all along. There was always discussion of, hey, whether it was a first-round pick or anything like that, hey, we maybe try and bring up a guy or, then add Glennon for another year and see if that pans out too. You never know. It could work out for Glennon at the same time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I wouldn't be they could have kept Jay Cutler for cheaper. If they weren't expecting great things out of the season, I mean, shoot, you save money on Jay Cutler. Why get rid of him? Who's now working for Fox? But he's got a job with Fox today.
Is he going to be smoking joints on the air? I wonder.
I don't know. I actually sent to a friend of mine, Gershon Rubinowitz. We were actually talking about it today, and I said that I hope he's like the sideline reporter and like someone comes up on him, like, oh, let's go down to Jay. And he's like, smoking a cigarette. Oh, sorry. What the hell? Oh, me?
He's standing there. He's like drinking a beer on the sideline, talking to a fan. He's like, crap, here I go.
yeah, exactly. I got to straighten up my tie. I don't know.
Oh my goodness! I mean, that's gonna be a show to watch in and of itself. With him in that booth as a third man too. That's gonna be crazy. So, man,
no, he's gonna be a second. He's gonna be color commentator.
Yeah.
And his first game will be Bears and Titans. So.
That's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh, Mitchell Trubisky stinks out. Okay.
Yeah, you can hear him grumbling in the background. You got rid of me for this?
So Jay, what do you think about the Cubs quarterback situation? Well, oh man. Anyway, Rob, we're right up against it, man. Thanks so much, man, for coming on. Obviously, as always, what do you got coming up, man?
Not too much. Actually, working on a piece right now for Baseball Essential about Rick Renteria, the manager of the White Sox. A lot of people are interested in him. Not too many people around here know about him, because he's he's always been more of a traditionally West Coast guy as far as managing. Like he was in San Diego before he came out to the Cubs. He hasn't really been around the Midwest too much. So people are interested in learning about him, so I thought I'd take that up. Beyond that, I'm not really sure yet. The season is young, so we'll see where we can partake and get to.
Sounds good. Rob, Thanks so much for coming on. Looking forward to talking to you again in a couple of weeks, man. Take care.
Yeah, cheers, Mike. Thanks for having me out, buddy.
All right, take care, man.